Hey, what's up, everybody? Remember this? Remember the old CV from a few weeks ago? This is from BGR. Not familiar with it? Pardon my face here, covering up the stock photo of two scientists in a lab. Former MI6 director says the CV was an accident from a Chinese lab. And we've heard individuals say that before. I think we heard Trump say that, claiming it was an accident, though it wasn't intentionally done. Let's kind of skim some of these headlines and see what they're talking about. Researchers have penned two new studies that say the novel CV was created in a lab in Wuhan. They claim that the virus received key components there that made it more dangerous. The researchers say although the virus was man-made in the lab, it was released accidentally. A former MI6 director agrees with the findings of these controversial studies, which have been met with plenty of resistance from the scientific community. Only one of the two studies has been published after undergoing significant edits to remove explicit accusations against China. Interesting how, myself not knowing that, how they have to remove or do significant edits as to appease daddy to get this thing published. Interesting, right? More than 5 months have passed since the novel CV health crisis began, or maybe even more than that, according to new evidence that keeps coming up. But we still have no idea how it all started. The scientific consensus is that SARS-CoV-2 wasn't bioengineered, and top US intelligence officials agree with that take. But wild conspiracy theories still say that COVID-19 is a man-made disease. That serves a specific purpose. Milder versions of those theories say the virus accidentally escaped from a lab. Meanwhile, China last week started changing the origin story of the novel CV. The virus did not escape from the Wuhan lab, but the pandemic didn't start from the wet market in the city either, as had been initially believed. Where did it start? China wouldn't say. Interesting, if that's true. I didn't verify that, but it's, hey man, when you're a communist government, like I said before, you can tell your people anything. The story is whatever the communists say it is, when it comes to their people and what they're led to believe. Here's the story. That's what it is. This brings us to the most startling CV story so far that says the CV started as an accident in a laboratory in China. It comes from a former MI6 boss who had access to the COVID-19 study that sparked some controversy behind the scenes. If the findings are real, this is the study that could get us closer to finding out who patient zero was. If it's not, it's the kind of tale that might inspire even more wild conspiracy theories that don't do anybody any good. The former spy, they talk about him here, Sir Richard Dearlove, led MI6 between 1999 and 2004. He told the Telegraph that the CV started as an accident. He said he has seen an important scientific report that says the virus did not develop naturally, but was instead created by man. And I think Trump had said that as well. I think he had said he'd seen the report too. And that's something that individuals like you and I, we probably don't get access to until years down the road, right? I do think that this started as an accident, Sir Richard says. It raises the issue. If China were to admit responsibility, does it pay reparations? I think it will make every country in the world rethink how it treats its relationship with China and how the international community behaves towards the Chinese leadership. All right. We'll skip the rest of that paragraph there. Of course, I'll link it in the description if you want to read that. We want to get down to more of the meat here. The paper in question comes from a Norwegian-British research team that claims it found clues in the novel CV's genetic sequence that suggest key elements were inserted and may not have evolved naturally. These key elements are sections placed on the SARS-CoV-2 spike surface that help the virus connect to a human cell, a key event in the life of the virus that allows it to take over a cell's huge chemical plant and turn it into a replication tool. In the published paper, the researchers theorize that the virus binds to the ACE2 and other receptors, and a vaccine should attempt to block those links. The former MI6 spy says the paper is peer-reviewed and produced by Professor Angus Dalglish of St. George's Hospital at the University of London. It was co-authored by the Norwegian virologist Birger Sorensen. The paper makes another mind-bending claim that could change everything if it's proven true. It says that the efforts to produce a vaccine are destined for failure, as the true etiology of the virus has been misunderstood. To remedy the problem, researchers are developing their own vaccine, produced by Immunor AS, a Norwegian pharmaceutical company led by Mr. Sorensen, the Telegraph explains. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Do they trade stock publicly? Maybe I can get in on a little bit of that. The vaccine study. Conveniently, this is the first red flag that we'll point out. The fact that a company would claim its vaccine candidate is miraculously the only one that will work. And that's what I was getting at above a little bit. It's kind of like interesting is what I was saying. We'll remind you that some 10 drugs are in advanced human testing, with several showing promise. More than 100 other vaccine candidates are also in development. The ones that passed phase 1 clinical trials have already proved they can inhibit the virus's ability to replicate. That seems like it would shut down what he's saying above with the ACE2 receptors, right? The ability to replicate, and only their drug can inhibit its ability to replicate. So, huge red flag right there. Hey, I'm not a scientist, far from it, but that would be the first red flag for me. Huge red flag there, that these other drugs have advanced as well. That's big for me too. I don't know how you feel about that. I'm sure you're probably thinking the same thing, right? That there's some financial motivation behind some of this stuff. I don't know. Sir Richard revealed that the paper had been rewritten several times, which could also be a red flag. The Telegraph saw a previous version of the research which concluded that the virus should be called the Wuhan virus, and claim they have proven beyond reasonable doubt that the COVID-19 virus is engineered. And of course it's the Wuhan virus. We are aware that these findings could have political significance and raise troubling questions, the author wrote initially in a draft of the paper that was widely circulated behind the scenes after being distributed for peer review. Intelligence officials also had access to it. John Frederick Moxness, the chief scientific advisor of the Norwegian military, then asked for his name to be withdrawn from the research. Scientists from the Francis Crick Institute and Imperial College London also dismissed the findings. These are the third and fourth red flags. Uh-oh. Things aren't looking so good. The Telegraph points out that the paper was rejected in April from publication in Nature and the Journal of Virology, which deemed the research unsuitable for publication. Fifth and sixth flags. All right, they're racking them up here, baby. The paper was then watered down to remove explicit accusations against China, the report notes. The rewritten study was subsequently accepted for publication in Quarterly Review of Biophysics Discovery. I'm sure that's a great read. That's a journal chaired by leading scientists from Stanford and the University of Dundee. Here's the full abstract of the study. I'll leave that on the screen if you want to read that, so pause it here. All right, we're almost done here. We've got two more sections real quick. It says here the second study. Dalglish and his colleagues are about to release a further analysis that says SARS-CoV-2 has unique fingerprints that cannot have evolved naturally and are indicative of purposive manipulation. The Telegraph saw the new study as well, titled A Reconstructed Historical Etiology of the SARS-CoV-2 Spike. It claims the virus is remarkably well adapted for human coexistence and is likely the result of a Wuhan experiment to produce chimeric viruses of high potency. The researchers seem quite convinced by their conclusions and challenge others to prove them wrong. The second study hasn't yet been accepted for publication. We'll count that as a seventh flag. He's still counting the flags. And then it touches on patient zero here in the last section. While all research studies deserve scrutiny, whether they've been peer-reviewed or not, I'll also point out that the Telegraph wouldn't publish this story just to make waves. More explanations are obviously needed. Hopefully other researchers will inspect these studies. China will likely also respond to the findings at some point down the road. We still have no idea who patient zero was, and we may never learn. Regardless of what these two studies say, the general consensus remains that the CV evolved naturally in an animal before jumping to humans late last year. Sir Richard told the Telegraph that he doesn't believe the Chinese released the virus deliberately, but they covered up the scale of the spread following the novel CV's accidental release. A cover-up of sorts is something we can all agree on, given the mounting evidence in that regard. Of course, the Chinese must have felt, well, if they've got to suffer a pandemic, maybe we shouldn't try too hard to stop. As it were, our competitors suffering the same disadvantages we've got, he said, warning that China is still essentially an antagonist to the West and should be treated accordingly. And of course, I think most of us can agree on that. Telegraph's full story is available in full at this link and worth a read. So again, I'll put this in the archive in the description, so you can go ahead and check that out if you want to read the whole story and check out some more about it. But, oh, interesting. It's a couple days old, this story. CV still making the news. I think, like I said, it's one of those things, just being the skeptical cynic I am, that a lot of individuals in power in this country and obviously in other countries, they're going to have access to high-level information that we don't have access to. We're not going to know anything unless they want us to know something. And like I always said, it's the term conspiracy theory. I never like to use that. They use it here wantonly, but I don't like to use it. Anything is on the table to me until it's proven not to be true. So let me know how you feel about this, everybody. Does this do anything for you? Does it sway you one way or another? Are these flags he's pointing out true? Like I said, do they sway you over towards the kind of like the animal evolution and then jumping to human? Or are you kind of still like scratching your head? Or are you like me, where you're just kind of waiting for more information and feeling like this is definitely something that's been forgotten in light of all the news going on lately? All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Take care.